Welcome to this rigorous scientific lecture on using artificial intelligence to break procrastination by targeting the emotional mechanisms behind task avoidance. Today we will explore the neuroscience of procrastination, develop a quantitative framework for measuring avoidance behavior, and implement a data-driven intervention protocol. Let's begin with a fundamental question. What is procrastination at the neurological level? Research from Dr. Tim Pickle and Dr. Fusha Saroy has conclusively demonstrated that procrastination is fundamentally an emotion regulation problem, not a time management issue. The key insight is that we avoid tasks not because we lack time, but because thinking about the task generates negative emotions. When you think about a task, your brain generates an emotional response. If that response is negative, such as anxiety, boredom, or frustration, your limbic system triggers an avoidance response. You then engage in mood repair through immediately rewarding activities like social media or video games. The amygdala, your brain's threat detection center, signals that the task represents a form of psychological threat. This triggers the same neural pathways involved in physical threat avoidance. Breaking procrastination requires your prefrontal cortex to override this limbic response. However, the prefrontal cortex has limited capacity and is easily depleted by stress, lack of sleep, or decision fatigue. Here's a critical question. If procrastination is an emotional regulation problem, how do we measure it quantitatively so we can track improvement? To create a scientific intervention, we need quantitative metrics. I propose 3 measurements: starting delay time in minutes, subjective discomfort rating on a 0 to 10 scale, and daily consistency measured as a binary yes or no for whether you started. Now let's introduce the core intervention, the 2-minute start drill. This protocol is designed to bypass the emotional avoidance mechanism by minimizing the activation energy required to begin. The protocol is simple. Set a timer for exactly 2 minutes. During those 2 minutes, you must engage with the task. After 2 minutes, you have complete permission to stop. No guilt, no judgment. This is the entire protocol. Why is this effective? The limbic system generates avoidance when it perceives a large, undefined threat. By committing to only 2 minutes, we drastically reduce the perceived threat. The amygdala can tolerate 2 minutes of discomfort because it knows relief is imminent. Compare the threat profile. A traditional task has unknown duration and high effort, maximizing perceived threat. The 2-minute drill has known duration and minimal effort, drastically reducing threat and making it easier for the prefrontal cortex to initiate action. Here's the psychological leverage, the Zeigarnik effect. Once you start a task, your brain experiences tension from the incomplete task. This tension often motivates continuation beyond the initial 2 minutes. Approximately 70 to 80% of the time, people continue past the 2-minute mark. Now we add the measurement component. Before starting each drill, rate your discomfort on a scale from 0 to 10. Let D represent your discomfort rating, where D is an element of the closed interval from 0 to 10. 0 means no discomfort, completely relaxed. 10 means maximum discomfort, feeling like you cannot possibly start. This is crucial. Rate your discomfort before starting the drill, not during or after. We want to measure anticipatory anxiety, which is what drives avoidance. Write down this number. Let me give you a concrete example. Sarah is a graduate student working on her dissertation. Every morning at 9 a.m. she plans to write. Let's track her first week using the 2-minute drill protocol. Here's Sarah's data for the first week. Notice the pattern. On Monday, she started 15 minutes late with a discomfort rating of 8. But she did start and continued for 45 minutes. By Friday, she started only 2 minutes late, discomfort rating of 4, and continued for 2 hours. The data reveals decreasing trends in both starting delay and discomfort rating. This is the signature of successful habit formation. The emotional charge associated with the task is diminishing through repeated exposure. Let's formalize the starting delay calculation. This gives us a quantitative measure of procrastination intensity. Starting delay for day I equals actual start time minus planned start time, both measured in minutes from midnight. The mean starting delay is the sum of all daily starting delays divided by n, the number of days. This gives us a single number representing average procrastination. Let's do a back-of-the-envelope calculation. If your average starting delay is 30 minutes per day and you work 5 days per week, what's the annual cost? 30 minutes per day times 5 days per week equals 150 minutes per week. 150 minutes per week times 50 working weeks equals 7,500 minutes per year. 7,500 minutes divided by 60 equals 125 hours per year. That's more than 3 full work weeks lost to procrastination delay alone. Think about that. 3 full weeks of productive time evaporated, not because you didn't eventually work, but because you delayed starting. This quantifies the real cost of procrastination. Now let's discuss how to create a trend line to visualize your progress over time. This is where I can provide powerful assistance. The simplest visualization is starting delay on the y-axis and day number on the x-axis. Plot each day's delay as a point, then fit a trend line to see if your delays are decreasing. Here's what your graph might look like. Day number on the x-axis, starting delay in minutes on the y-axis. Early days show high variability and high delay. Later days show lower delay with less variability. If your trend line has a negative slope, you're successfully reducing procrastination. If the slope is 0 or positive, your intervention isn't working and you need to adjust your approach. Now let's discuss the specific role of artificial intelligence in this framework. How exactly does AI help break procrastination? First function, emotional pattern recognition. You can journal your pre-task emotions and use AI to identify recurring patterns. For example, you might discover that discomfort is highest on Mondays or after poor sleep. Second function, personalized micro-interventions. Based on your discomfort rating, I can suggest specific techniques. If discomfort is 8 or above, it might recommend a 5-minute walk before the 2-minute drill to reduce physiological arousal. Third function, predictive modeling. After collecting 2 weeks of data, I can identify high-risk moments. If you consistently delay on Thursday afternoons, I can send a preemptive reminder Thursday morning with specific coping strategies. The AI workflow looks like this. You input data including time, discomfort rating, and contextual factors. AI analyzes for patterns, then generates personalized intervention strategies based on your specific emotional triggers and situational variables. Let me give you a detailed example of how AI pattern recognition works in practice. James is a software engineer who chronically avoids conducting code reviews. He knows he should review his teammates' code daily, but consistently delays. Let's see how AI helps him understand why. James logs his data for a week. Notice the pattern? After stand-up meetings, his discomfort spikes to 8 or 9, and delays exceed 90 minutes. On mornings with coffee before seeing anyone, discomfort drops to 6 or 7 and delays are under 45 minutes. The AI identifies the pattern. Stand-up meetings trigger social comparison anxiety. Hearing about his teammates, progress makes James feel inadequate, which amplifies his discomfort about reviewing their code. This is the emotional root of his procrastination. The personalized intervention is simple. Schedule code reviews before stand-up meetings, not after. This removes the emotional trigger. James implements this and his average delay drops from 80 minutes to 20 minutes within 1 week. Let's discuss the neuroscience of why repeated 2-minute drills create lasting behavioral change. This involves neuroplasticity. Every time you start, despite discomfort, you weaken the neural association between the task and threat. This is called extinction learning. The amygdala gradually learns that the task is not actually dangerous. Simultaneously, you're building new neural pathways. The sequence of checking the time, rating discomfort, setting a timer, and beginning becomes automatized. This requires less prefrontal cortex activation over time. We can model starting probability as a function of repetitions and the change in discomfort rating. More repetitions and decreasing discomfort both increase the probability of autonomous task initiation. Research by Philip Alali shows habit formation takes 18 to 254 days with a median of 66 days. This means you need consistent daily practice for approximately 2 months before starting becomes truly automatic. Let's introduce a more sophisticated metric, the consistency ratio. This captures not just how long you delay, but whether you start at all. Consistency ratio equals the number of days you started divided by total days tracked. This gives you a percentage representing your follow-through rate. Research suggests you need a consistency ratio above 0.8 or 80% for sustainable behavioral change. Below this threshold, the habit doesn't consolidate in long-term memory. Here's an important question students often ask. What if I do the 2-minute drill every day for a month, but my discomfort rating never decreases? What does that tell me? If discomfort remains high after 30 days of consistent exposure, this suggests the task carries unresolved emotional meaning beyond simple conditioning. The avoidance may be serving a psychological function. For example, if you're avoiding writing because you fear harsh judgment, no amount of exposure will help until you address the underlying perfectionism. The task represents a threat to your self-worth, not just a neutral activity. In these cases, combine the 2-minute drill with cognitive restructuring. Before starting, write down your catastrophic thoughts, then generate realistic alternatives. This addresses the cognitive distortion maintaining the emotional charge. Let's calculate the compound effect of small improvements in starting behavior over 1 year. This is where the mathematics becomes inspiring. Assume you start with an average 30-minute delay and reduce it to 5 minutes over 12 weeks through consistent 2-minute drills. What's the cumulative time savings? Average delay reduction is 30 minus 5, which equals 25 minutes saved per day. 25 minutes times 250 workdays per year equals 6,250 minutes. 6,250 minutes divided by 60 equals 104 hours, which is approximately 13 full workdays. You've essentially created almost 3 additional work weeks. But here's what's even more valuable than the time savings: the psychological freedom. You're no longer controlled by avoidance. You're no longer experiencing chronic guilt and anxiety about delayed tasks. This improves baseline mood and cognitive function. Let me give you a concrete implementation plan for the next 7 days. This is your starting protocol. Day 1. Choose one specific recurring task that you consistently avoid. Make it something you should do daily, like exercise, writing, studying, or email processing. Days 2 through 7. Every day at the same time, rate your discomfort from 0 to 10, set a 2-minute timer, and start the task. Record the actual start time and discomfort rating. Track exactly 3 data points: planned start time, actual start time, and discomfort rating. Nothing else. Don't track how long you continued or how much you accomplished. Those are secondary metrics that come later. At the end of 7 days, calculate your mean starting delay and mean discomfort rating. These are your baseline numbers. Everything you do going forward is measured against these baselines. Here's what progress looks like. Week 1 baseline shows mean delay of 35 minutes and mean discomfort of 7.5. By week 4, these drop to 12 minutes and 4.2 respectively. This is a 65% reduction in delay and a 44% reduction in discomfort. Now let's discuss how AI maintains long-term accountability, which is often where behavioral interventions fail. I can send you reminders 5 minutes before your scheduled start time. But these aren't generic reminders. They include emotional priming based on your historical data, such as, your average discomfort at this time is 6. Remember, you only need 2 minutes. If you miss a day, AI detects this immediately and adjusts intervention intensity. After 2 consecutive missed days, it might suggest a troubleshooting session to identify new barriers that have emerged. AI celebrates micro wins. When you achieve 7 consecutive days, it acknowledges this. When your mean discomfort drops below 5, it highlights this progress. This positive reinforcement is crucial for maintaining motivation. Let's examine the 3 most common failure modes for this protocol and how to correct them. Failure mode 1. You set the timer but don't actually engage with the task. You sit at your desk but browse social media. Correction. Define starting operationally. Starting means hands-on keyboard typing, or pen on paper writing, or physically performing the first action of the task. Failure mode 2. You start, but spend the entire 2 minutes catastrophizing about how much work remains. Correction. During the 2 minutes, focus only on the immediate present action. No thinking about the project as a whole. Just this sentence. Just this calculation. Just this movement. Failure mode 3. You stop exactly at 2 minutes every single time and never continue. Correction. This suggests your 2-minute commitment is too short. Increase to 5 minutes. Some tasks require more activation energy to trigger the Zeigarnik effect. How does the 2-minute drill integrate with existing productivity systems like Pomodoro technique or time blocking? The 2-minute drill is a pre-commitment device that sits before your main productivity system. It gets you started. Once you're engaged, you can transition into a full Pomodoro session or your planned time block. Think of it as the ignition system for your productivity engine. The engine is your existing method, but if the ignition fails, the engine never runs. The 2-minute drill ensures the ignition fires reliably. Why 2 minutes specifically? Is there something special about this duration from a neuroscience perspective? 2 minutes is below the threshold for sustained cortisol elevation. When you commit to a stressful task indefinitely, your hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis activates, releasing cortisol. This amplifies the sense of threat. 2 minutes is too brief to trigger this cascade. Research on acute stress tolerance shows most individuals can tolerate moderate discomfort for 2 to 3 minutes without escape behavior. 2 minutes sits comfortably within this window, making compliance more likely. There's a rough heuristic. Optimal starting commitment is approximately 0.1 times the total expected task duration. If a task typically takes 30 minutes, a 2 to 3 minute start commitment is appropriate. Let's calculate the return on investment of implementing this protocol. What's the cost versus benefit? Time cost is approximately 5 minutes per day, 2 minutes for the drill itself, 3 minutes for logging data and reflection. Over 1 month, that's 150 minutes or 2.5 hours. Time saved, using a conservative estimate, is 15 minutes per day from reduced procrastination delay. Over 1 month, that's 450 minutes, or 7.5 hours. Return on investment equals 450 minus 150, divided by 150 times 100, that's a 200% return on investment. You gained 3 hours for every 1 hour invested. But this calculation excludes psychological benefits, like reduced anxiety, improved mood, and enhanced self-efficacy. These are harder to quantify, but potentially more valuable than the time savings alone. Looking toward the future, what advanced AI capabilities might enhance this protocol? Future AI could integrate multiple data streams: sleep quality from wearables, calendar stress from upcoming deadlines, historical context from past weeks. It could predict your discomfort rating before you even report it. If AI predicts tomorrow will be a high discomfort day, it could suggest preemptive interventions tonight. Perhaps an earlier bedtime, or pre-writing your 2-minute starting action, or scheduling a support call. AI could implement adaptive protocols. If your continuation rate is consistently above 90%, it might suggest increasing to 3-minute drills to build more momentum. If below 50%, decrease to 90 seconds. Let me summarize the complete framework we've covered in this lecture. First principle: procrastination is fundamentally an emotion regulation failure, not a time management failure. The avoidance targets emotional discomfort, not the task its. The 2-minute drill bypasses limbic resistance by minimizing perceived threat through time-bounded minimal commitment. This allows prefrontal override of the avoidance impulse. Track 3 quantitative metrics: starting delay in minutes, discomfort rating from 0 to 10, and consistency ratio as percentage of days started. AI enhances the protocol through pattern recognition of emotional triggers, generation of personalized micro-interventions, and maintenance of long-term accountability. Neuroplasticity research indicates approximately 60 to 90 days of consistent practice are required before starting becomes automatic and discomfort substantially diminishes. Expected outcomes after 12 weeks: 50 to 70% reduction in both starting delay and discomfort rating, with consistency ratio above 0.8. Here's your immediate action plan starting today. Step 1. Before tomorrow, identify the single highest impact task you consistently avoid. This should be something that, if done daily, would significantly improve your life or work. Step 2. Choose a specific time for your 2-minute drill. Same time every day. Consistency and timing dramatically increases compliance through temporal conditioning. Step 3. Create a tracking spreadsheet with 3 columns: planned start time, actual start time, and discomfort rating. You can add more metrics later, but start with just these 3. Step 4. Commit to 7 consecutive days with no exceptions, not 6 days. 7. This initial week is about proving to yourself that you can maintain a micro-habit. Let me close with this. The science of behavioral change is unambiguous. Small, consistent actions compound over time. The 2-minute drill isn't a hack or a trick. It's a systematic application of neuroscience principles to emotion regulation. You're not trying to develop more willpower. You're redesigning the emotional landscape of task initiation, making starting less threatening and therefore more probable. Your data will reveal patterns invisible to introspection. You'll discover specific contexts, times, or emotional states that predict avoidance. This self-knowledge is the foundation of lasting change. Begin tomorrow. Set your timer. Rate your discomfort. Start for 2 minutes. That's all. The compound effect will take care of the rest.